Thank you very much. Michelle, can I have roll call, please?
Mark Johnson,
Here.
Ed Hawkins, Paul Levis is absent, Charles Reno,
Here.
Troy Schneider,
Here.
Kevin Weisky,
Here.
Peter Gower.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 3, this is a item for public comment. This item is for either public comment on any action item or for any general public comment. Michelle, do we have any general public comment cards?
No, we do not.
I'm going to open the public hearing. If anyone would like to come forward and make a public comment, please do so. See no one jumping forward, I'm going to close public comment, and we will move on to agenda item number 4, approval of the minutes. 4.1, Commissioners, is the agenda from our August 3rd meeting. Did anyone have any corrections, changes? I'll ask for a motion on that.
Commissioner Weisky, so moved.
Commissioner Johnson, all second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Item 4.2, minutes from our August 17th commission meeting. Commissioners, any changes or additions? Seeing none, do I have a motion on that one?
Commissioner Reno, I'll make the motion to approve the August 17th minutes.
Thank you very much. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Commissioner Schneider, I'll second that.
Thank you very much. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, any abstentions?
Commissioner Weisky, abstention.
Thank you very much. Michelle, my microphone seems a little bit loud. It's me. Am I yelling? Is that just?
No, I think everybody's
I'll
yelling.
sit back. So we'll move on to City Council liaison reports.
I have nothing from Councilman Breckus.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, that will move on to public hearings, item number 6. These are, each of them public hearings with public comment associated with them. We are going to move the agenda around a little bit. We'll start with item 6.1. We'll move on to 6.4 from there and 6.7 after that, and you'll understand why in just a minute. We'll start with 6.1. Claudia, do you want to tell us what is going on with that one?
Yes, Claudia Hansen, Planning Manager. For the record, Sierra Nevada Academy did have a noticing error, and I'm not going to get into the details, but there was a noticing error. It will be renoticed, and so you do not need to open this one up. It has been agendized that it has been pulled.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You may want to ask if anybody has any questions on it, just out of courtesy, but no
Okay.
requirement to.
If anyone here would like to make a comment on that item, we can certainly open up the public comment to accommodate that. Seeing none on that, we will move on to item 6.4, which is LDC 16-00076 Reno self-storage. Claudia.
This one as well, we had a noticing error in the postcard on this one. This one will also be renoticed. And this is going to the next agenda, I believe. Yes. And sorry, it's going to be the 21st of September.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Any public comment on this item, item 6.4, Reno self-storage? Seeing none on that, we will move on to item 6.7, LDC 17-00003 Mount Bismarck Master Plan and Zoning Map Amendments.
Once again, Claudia Hansen, Planning Manager. The applicant's representative is requesting a postponement on this, and he is in the audience if you'd like to ask him any questions.
Okay. John, do you want to say anything, or is that sufficient?
That is sufficient. I'm here on behalf of the applicant. We are asking for a continuance to October 19th, working through some issues. Appreciate your support in doing so. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks very much. And this is on the public hearing agenda, so if there are any public comments on this item, we will certainly hear those now. If there are not any, we will move on to the rest of our agenda, starting with item 6.2.
Actually, on 6.7, if we can
Yes.
get a motion, since that one was
yes,
noticed
thank you.
properly, it's just to continue to a date certain of October 19th. And just figured you did, I believe you did open the public hearing, and the motion would be to continue to October 19th.
Yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We'll
Commissioner
take a-
Reno, I'll make a motion
Commissioner Reno.
to continue LDC 170003 Mount Bismarck Master Plan and Zoning Map Amendment to the October 19th Planning Commission meeting.
Thank you very much. Have a motion to have second. Commissioner.
Commissioner Hawkins, second.
Okay, have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Now we can continue the item. Thanks. Starting back at the top of our agenda, public hearing items, item 6.2 is where we'll pick up LDC 16-00067 Sharlands Memory and Storage. And we will begin with a presentation from the applicant or the applicant's representative.
Good evening. Derek Wilson with Rubicon Design Group on behalf of the applicant. We're asking for a special use permit for a 48-bed memory care facility and a 700-unit mini storage facility, two separate operations, one project site. This site, you've seen me here before on this site over the past 2 years. I think we've done 6 different hearings on this piece of property. So we're fairly familiar with it and familiar with the neighborhood. It's the eastern end of Sharlands Avenue where it ends at the dirt. And in fact, the western half of this property is now under construction with an assisted living facility. So the memory care facility is highly complementary to that. It's essentially a related use in a way. Patients could, in fact, move back and forth from one to the other if necessary. The memory care facility, the storage facility is just a good, quiet, low-impact use for what is in effect a long cul-de-sac next to the freeway. Thanks. We've got a better exhibit. I just wanted you to see the project location as a starting point. As I mentioned, overall, it's a very low noise and traffic generator. The project, in fact, any project in that site would act as a visual and sound buffer between the freeway to the south and the neighborhood to the north. There's going to be a solid wall and landscaping along the north side of our property. The applicant for this project worked in conjunction with the previous approval to coordinate that wall. So it'll be a continuous design, a consistent design. And it's a design that was deemed effective for the previous project, and we have every reason to believe it'll be effective for this project as well. A big point with the neighborhood over the past 2 years has been pedestrian connectivity from the northeast corner of our site. That's Backer Way, where it comes to a dead end. And then there's an informal walking path over to Sharlands Avenue, to the shopping complex at Sharlands. This project will improve that path, formalize that path. So I think that's an amenity to the neighborhood. There was some concern from the neighbors about a road connection between Sharlands and Backer, essentially looping through our site. That's not going to happen. The city didn't want that. The neighborhood didn't want it. We don't need it. So that's not part of the project. We've got enhanced landscaping along our north property line to further buffer us from the neighborhood.
I'm sorry, Derek, can I jump in really quick? Can you put
Sure.
up a site plan so we can show that
Sure.
backer? Thank you.
Sure.
In case there's some neighbors here.
Yeah. Due to the long, sort of skinny parcel, got this in 2 pieces, but I think it should be left now. Okay, there we go.
You got it folded if you need it to.
So you can ignore the white band in the middle. It splits that middle building. Sharlands Avenue at the south. This is the memory care building, a self-contained operation. This is 1 building of storage, 2 buildings of storage, 3 storage buildings, and we have landscaping and detention area off here to the east. And then you can see the connecting pathway that will come over to Backer Way. This is a utility access road, not a public road. So the storage facility will be fenced and secure. won't have public access, won't have unregulated access, but we will maintain that pedestrian connection open to the public. That's really it. We had a sound study done for this. It found that it's likely to be an improvement over current freeway noise that reaches the neighborhood. We've had no complaints from the neighbors. I've been out there multiple times recently. We've had no calls, no questions or issues. The memory care facility is a needed operation. There's a high demand for that. This is a good location for it. Sharlands, arterial street, can easily handle whatever traffic is generated. Be very small, very low noise generation at night. There has been questions in the past about REMSA service to these facilities. I've talked to REMSA. They are not able to offer a blanket statement about when they'll use their siren or when they won't. But what they say is that their policy is to not use it unless they have to. So if they're making a midnight call to a quiet area like this, low traffic area like this, they don't use a siren. So it's routine that they won't be generating noise late at night. If there was some exceptional circumstance, a fire or something, sure, you're going to get noise, but that's not a high probability for this use. That's my overview. I'll be happy to elaborate as needed. Thanks.
Thank you very much. From here, we will move on and get a presentation from staff. Jeff, welcome.
Thank you, Chair, members of the commission. Let me fix this a little bit here. Is that a little bit easier to see?
The white band's gone.
The white band's gone.
Thank you.
Okay, so in addition to the two special use permits that Derek mentioned, there's a couple other special use permit requests. One is the non-residential uses adjacent to residentially zoned property. All the properties located here are all residentially zoned. The memory care facility, by virtue of people living there, will operate 24 hours. So there's a special use permit for operations between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. And there is grading that will result in cuts of 20 feet or more. You can barely see it, but this is what's triggering the special use permit right here. This will be unnoticeable. This building is built into the hill. As you can see from the elevations, there is a slope that comes up, and the building will be 3 stories, with the first story right about here, second story right about here, and the third story above that. And so with the residential adjacency, there's setback requirements. For every foot above 15 feet, you have to take the initial setback and then set it back 3 additional feet. So this exhibit right here shows that the building will be set back, this building C right here in the storage will be set back. Let's see if that can clarify a little bit, Michelle. Can we zoom out? Let's try this real quick. Here we go. As you can see, this setback will be almost 60 feet from the residence to the north. So that's a pretty significant distance. And so as you can see, if you follow that ratio of increasing 3 feet distance per foot above 15 feet, you will get this sightline distance almost. So the building will be stepped back. In addition to that, the noise study Derek mentioned, because of the fact that the freeway has no buffer right now between the residents to the north and the freeway, there's that sound is going directly into their backyards. And so by virtue of this building being constructed and all the landscaping being added, will actually be a decrease in the ambient noise level that these residents will be experiencing. In addition to that, the two uses are very low intensity uses, so you will not be getting that constant noise. There are some conditions to be noted within the staff report that the commission would want to take a look at, namely some of the requirements for 60% of the trees along the north property line. We're requiring, or we're recommending a condition to make these 60% evergreen trees. It was a similar condition that was added to the project to the west. That's pretty much it. And we're going to require, or we're recommending a condition to have a photometric plan as well. So I'm available for any questions where staff can make all the findings, and we're available.
Okay, Jeff, thank you very much for that presentation. At this point, this is a public hearing item, so I'm going to open the public hearing in just a moment. Before I get to that, I'd like to bring it back to the commission for a moment and ask for disclosures, and I'll start with Commissioner Weisky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've visited the site and I spoke with the applicant's representative.
Was your microphone on there, Commissioner Hawkins?
Visited the site, talked with the applicant and the applicant's rep, and 2 emails.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Gower, I visited the site.
Commissioner Johnson, as did I.
Commissioner Schneider, as did I.
Commissioner Reno, as did I.
Okay, thank you very much, Commissioners. At this point, I'm going to open the public comment portion of this item and ask for any public comment. Michelle, do we have any public comment cards?
No, we do not.
Okay. Anyone wishing to make a comment on this item? Seeing none, I am going to close public comment, bring it back to the commission, and ask for questions of staff or the applicant. Who would like to start? Commissioner Weisky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant's representative, please. Derek? Can you describe the fence that's going in, the solid fence to the north? Is that going to be on the property line and replace the existing fences? How is that going to work?
We had anticipated with this project and the project to the west that we would be replacing people's wooden fences that tend to be on the property line. It turned out that the builder that's working the project to the west encountered some resistance from some of those homeowners. For reasons of their own, they didn't want a decorative block solid wall fence. They wanted to keep their wooden fence. I think that's not the ideal solution, but it's what they wanted. So we're moving the fence slightly onto our side, onto our property. Yeah, the minimum amount required to not disturb the existing fence.
Okay, thank you. No further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Johnson?
Thank you. I have a question for Jeff. Just clarification. Based on one of the conditions talking about the extension of Sharlands and basically allowing it as dedication to the city of Reno. Sorry, Bill, maybe you can weigh in on this one. Is on. Should I talk as loud as Peter? Is that better? Should I enunciate? Just a clarification in terms of where we anticipate this, the extension going to, and the cul-de-sac that is spoken about for the turnaround. Can you, I guess, using the map here?
Yeah, certainly, for the
Walk me
record,
through
Bill
that.
Goss, senior engineer. The applicant is actually desires to leave that as a private street, their extension of Sharlands. The property to the west is proposing to extend Sharlands as a public roadway and dedicate that to the city when they've completed those improvements. As designed, this street will continue the extension of Sharlands to public street standards and they can offer that to the city, and we would maintain that. And as I point right here, that's basically will be the cul-de-sac that would be required at the end of Sharlands, whether that becomes a public dedicated street or whether they maintain it as a private street with a public easement over the top of it. That will be determined at the time of the permit itself. But the city is more than happy to take that on as a public street if it's constructed to city standards, and if it's not, if they don't want to dedicate it, they still have to construct it to city standards.
Okay, and so based on the condition in here, either one of those is acceptable to the city?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. I think that's it for now.
Thank you. Commissioners, Commissioner Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This question's for the applicant's representative. I know what the paperwork says in front of me. Assure me and the rest of the commission that there will be no light penetration into the residential area.
Derek Wilson with Rubicon Design Group. Yeah, absolutely. We will comply with Reno code. We don't have a problem with that. I think the city's residential adjacency standards make sense. It protects neighborhoods. As we said before, it's a low impact use. The storage facility will have essentially no activity at night. It'll have security fencing. Lighting would be the minimum consistent with what the police department might require, for instance. So yeah, there's no need to shine lights into the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioners, additional questions? Commissioner Reno.
Commissioner Reno, Jeff, really quick. Condition number 5, where it talks about 60% trees along the north property line shall be evergreen. It's the last sentence that I just need some clarification on. Trees shall be placed on average of 30 feet on center. Is that the evergreen trees, or is that all trees? And I mean 30 feet on average, so you could have pretty big openings between them. Can you help to explain?
That is for all trees.
Okay.
That is a typical standard that we get for street trees. They can surely be placed closer together. They have a minimum tree calculation that they're going to have to fit onto their site. Out of that northern portion, though, whatever trees they provide, 60% of those have to be evergreen trees and at least a minimum of 10 feet tall.
Okay.
So we didn't detract from the overall tree count on the site. We allow them just to move things where they see fit.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, commissioners, other questions? All right, let's move on to discussion or a motion, if anyone would like to go there.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Weisky, before we go to motion, I, under discussion, would like to talk to the commissioners about condition number 4 on page 2. Calls for 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., 7 days a week are the hours for the storage unit. And I personally think that because of the layout of the storage units and the roadways going north and south, that's going to be headlights at night going north into the residences. And I've spoken with Derek about it already, the applicant's representative, about reducing the closure time from 10 o'clock to 9 o'clock to preserve the neighbors to the north, any noise or light pollution that may come their way from vehicles traveling. And I would like discussion from the commission to modify condition number 4.
Commissioner Weisky poses a good point.
Mr. Chair. Commissioner Johnson, I agree with the point you're pointing out. I will say, and I would support that. I would support reducing the hours. I would say that at least to the effect of even till 9 p.m., the fact that we are also conditioning the 6-foot-high solid fence at that end, I think will help minimize some of that. Although it is a rather long run, the driveway, the lights will spill over a little bit. But I do think that we've, some of the other conditions between the fence and the trees will address a lot of that light spill. But certainly 10 o'clock, that close to the residences, I would agree may be a little late. And if the applicant is amenable to a 9 o'clock modification there, I would support that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Commissioner Reno, I agree. I think that's reasonable. 9 o'clock's reasonable. And that kind of brought up my point of the landscaping because I wanted to make sure that they're protected from light pollution. So I don't know if there's a way we can require that not only they add trees at the end of those aisles, but then also reduce the hours.
So Commissioner Reno, in addition potentially to condition number 5, to specify the location of the trees?
Yeah, at least at the end of those 2 aisles. I don't know how else you would say that, you know. Add some trees at the end of the 2 aisles.
That's clear enough direction. You can just,
Yeah.
we'll put it in correct wording for you if that's the way the motion goes.
Commissioner Weitzke?
Okay. And in my conversation with Derek, and Derek, I'd like to call you back up to the podium just to confirm, is your client in agreement to closing the business at 9 o'clock, 7 days a week?
Derek Wilson, Rubicon Design Group. Yes, we're in agreement with the amended condition.
Thank you very much.
Derek, before you sit down, is the condition that Commissioner Reno is proposing, does that also make sense?
It does make sense. That's actually a good idea. I have to compliment you on that. We in the past with difficult projects, we have met with individual property owners and asked them, where do you want the trees? And they'll just tell you. This is not a difficult project, so we haven't met with the neighbors on that level. But I think at the end of the aisles makes sense. That's easy enough to do. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks very much.
May I ask for clarification?
Yes.
On the trees at the end of the aisle, we do have a condition that's going to be, that we're recommending for 6 additional trees in this area. Would this be additional trees that you're requiring, or that the commission would desire at the end of the aisles, or sticking with the existing tree count and just bunching them at the aisles?
Commissioner Reno, my intent was to just move the trees around and use them as this current count.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and commissioners agree with that also. Okay. All right, any additional discussion? I think we have some pretty good direction. Motion. Commissioner
Mr.
Weitzke.
Chairman, thank you. In the case of LDC 16-00067, Sharlands Memory and Storage, based upon compliance with the applicable findings, I move to approve the special use permit subject to the conditions, including modification to condition number 4, which is to reduce the closing time from 10 p.m. to 9 p.m. 7 days a week. And I don't know that we need to modify a condition or add a condition for the tree location, but with clarification for staff to note tree location at the north ends of the drive aisles when the final plans come through.
And that's evergreen, I would imagine?
Evergreens, yes, please, Claudia. Thank you.
Would staff prefer a separate condition on that, or does it matter?
I do not believe that we should have a separate condition, but if we can amend condition
5.
number 5 to include that specific language,
Okay.
I think that would be the best.
Then my motion is to modify condition number 5 to request that placement of evergreen trees of the existing quantity be placed at the north end of the drive aisles.
Okay.
And I can still make all the findings.
Thank you very much. Is the commission clear on the motion with the amended conditions? Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Commissioner Hawkins, second.
Thank you very much. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Good luck with your project. Moving on to item 6.3, LDC 17-00002, Bella Vista Ranch Clubhouse. And we will begin with a presentation from the applicant's representative. Derek, welcome back.
Hi, Derek Wilson, Rubicon Design Group. Haven't quite had a chance to get my notes ready for the next thing, but yeah, this is that's a fairly dense site plan, but we're seeking a special use permit to add a clubhouse that serves the planned unit development neighborhood only within the existing PUD, the existing Bella Vista PUD area. So this is out near the intersection of South Meadows Parkway and Veterans Parkway. The site is currently graded flat. It's been graded, slightly elevated, sitting there for several years, waiting for development. The handbook originally included houses on this site, so we're removing some of those housing units and replacing it with a community clubhouse, similar to clubhouses that operate in, say, Somerset. So per the existing PUD handbook and Reno code, this requires a special use permit to make this swap. As I alluded to, the clubhouse and the surrounding neighborhood, the adjacent houses are all going to be developed together. There's nothing there yet, so they're in effect going to be laid out and designed together. The clubhouse is roughly 5,300 square feet, so you can see the building is fairly conservative relative to the size of the property. That's the gray area is the building. There's some shade structures, a lot of patio area, a lot of landscape area, a pool. But not a very intense development overall. The clubhouse and the pool will operate daily, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. And will be staffed during those times. There's a fitness center inside the building, and that will operate 24 hours a day and not be staffed. So the special use permit includes 24-hour use, but that will be entirely contained in the building. There won't be noise or outdoor activity after 10 p.m. The pool will certainly be closed. So that will be people using a pass card sort of system. Residents of the area can show up at midnight and work out if they want to. This project reduces traffic within the PUD. It's a lessening of traffic compared to the original approval because we're getting rid of approximately 10 housing units, and the clubhouse by itself, well, it's a little bit hard to quantify how it generates traffic trips. Mostly it will reduce trips because people will walk to this site or ride their bikes versus traveling out of the area by car. So overall, it's a low intensity impact reducer. That's it. It's fairly straightforward. I think this is fairly standard housing development amenity. We do have one change to condition number 5 that I'd like to throw out here. This is really just a clarification. It's in no way meant to change the intent of the condition. So you can see the language in red there in the first sentence. We just added for the clubhouse. I thought that the condition seemed to apply to the construction phase of the project, which wasn't the intent. We're talking about security for the clubhouse. So it's a simple addition. If people are okay with that, I would propose that we have that be the new condition 5. That's the outline of the project. I could elaborate as needed. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks very much, Derek. Presentation from staff next. Heather, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. Heather Manzo, Assistant Planner for the record. Derek did a great job of explaining the details of the project. The site is located within Village C of Bella Vista Planned Unit Development, specifically in the hashed location on this site. Villages A and B of Bella Vista are located to the west of Veterans Parkway. Those are already pretty well developed, and they were developed by another builder. The clubhouse is intended to serve the residents of both Village C and Village D, which are being developed by Toll Brothers, and this will be an amenity for those residents. The 20 parking spaces that are required by code are being provided on site, but parallel, located off street or just off street. surrounding the site. The applicant has provided 25 parking spaces in total. The use will require 20, and a condition has been placed on the project to require that any parking spaces that are required as a part of this use be identified so that users will know where parking is specifically allocated for this use. An accessible parking space is required with this project, and the applicant has agreed to locate it within the circular driveway around this location here. And when the plans come in, they'll identify exactly where they're going to place that, but it will be completely on-site, and circulation and access to that will be completely on-site and not accessed from the street. This is an example of the front elevation for the 5,200 square foot clubhouse. The architecture is consistent on all four sides. The applicant has also proposed a pool house that is within the fenced area, and the architecture of that will also be consistent. This project is subject to the Bella Vista PUD design standards, so all the accessory structures, the fencing, any other improvements that they provide will be subject to the standards within the handbook. This was a special use permit request for both a non-residential development adjacent to residentially zoned property, and also for the 24-hour use for the fitness center within the clubhouse. Staff is recommending approval, and when this went to the Ward 3 NAB, we received no comments from the NAB members or from the members of the public that had attended the meeting. I did receive 4 phone calls from nearby residents, mainly residents that live in Village A and B, specifically asking what the use was as far as the 24-hour operations were concerned, and also who would have access to the facilities. And so with clarification with those questions, they didn't have any further concerns or comments. And staff can support the suggested modification to condition number 5, and we can make all the findings, and I'm available for any questions if you may have them.
Okay, thank you very much, Heather. Thank you also for mentioning the NAB comments. I think that's important to mention, so appreciate that.
Thank you.
Commissioners, before we get to public comment, I'd like to ask for disclosures. Commissioner Reno, we'll start with you this time.
I'm familiar with the site.
Commissioner Snyder, as am I.
Commissioner Johnson, I drove by the site.
Commissioner Gower, as did I.
Commissioner Hawkins, I talked to the supervisor out there as well as the applicant's rep, visited the site as well.
Commissioner Weisky, I rode to the site and talked to the applicant's representative.
Well done. All right, this is a public hearing item, so I'm going to open the public hearing, ask for any public comment on the item. Do not see any. Michelle, do you have any public comment cards?
No, I do not.
Okay. I will go ahead and close the public comment period of this item and bring it back to the commission for questions. Commissioners, any questions? Heather, my question when I read through this was more of a contextual question. I mean, it seemed like such a straightforward change to go through the special use permit process for this type of modification to a PUD. Maybe you could give us some context as to why this item is here requesting the special use permit.
I'd be happy to. Again, Heather Manzo, Assistant Planner. Within the Bella Vista Ranch Handbook, it identifies within Village C uses that are permitted within that area, and it specifically references Reno Municipal Code SF6 zoning, and so the list of allowed uses are specifically listed in code. And since it references back code, the clubhouse use requires a special use permit within SF6, and so that's why it requires a permit for that. In addition, because it is not a residential facility, it did trigger the requirement for the special use permit for the residential adjacency. At the time that the original handbook was adopted, I don't think that the clubhouse use was really contemplated by the original applicant, and so As the new developer came in, they wanted to provide this amenity to market their facilities, so
Okay.
we're here.
Appreciate that context. That's very helpful. Mr. Lysky.
Thank you. Question for Bill Gall, please. Bill, I'm concerned with cross-traffic from Village A and Village B going across Veterans Parkway. Can you tell me what will trigger a lit crosswalk sign, or is that intersection to be signalized upon build-out of Village C?
For the record, Bill Gall, Senior Engineer. At this point, there was no crosswalk design or proposed in the original PUD or in the development of that area. It's something we could look at. It's an existing condition out there now. As development comes in, we do have the park in that area. So there was nothing in the development or in the original traffic report that triggered that. Again, with the addition of South Meadows, the extension of Veterans Parkway and the Southeast Connector, we will drive additional traffic to that area that wasn't previously identified. RTC will be looking at this area and South Meadows Parkway once the extension of Veterans with the Southeast Connector is complete. But at this point, we didn't identify that as a location, and so we haven't asked them to look at it. It is something we could look at as they bring in Village C and D and ask them to update traffic. Identify traffic.
Then
areas,
is there a trigger point for at least a crosswalk caution flashing light, or how is that determined?
We can at any point, this, like I said, Veterans is an existing roadway. We can take a look at that. As per this request, I will put that into Public Works, and they'll take a look at that. An existing condition, it might be something they go back and take a second look at once the park is in place and the residentials start coming in on the east side of there, and we can take another look at that at that point.
Because what I'm concerned with is kids, families, whatever, going from Village A and B over Veterans into the new development to use that rec center. And, it's fine for C and D because they're already within the parameters of the main roads.
Right, I understood. I believe that this rec center is limited to Village C and D as access, that Villages A and B will not be utilizing the rec center. Not to say they won't share it with people that they visit. So,
okay.
But that is right
And
now.
I'm going to ask for another clarification from the applicant's representative. Derek, would you please, I know we over the phone had a conversation of which villages would be, given rights or usage privilege to this rec center. Can you clarify that for me, please?
Sure. Derek Wilson, Rubicon Design Group. It'll be Village C and D. Villages
Okay, it will not be A and B then.
Right.
Okay. All right. Then that takes care of that. Thank you. No further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Weiss. Good
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Reno.
Bill, really quick. Village D is to the south, and is there any connectivity between the two of them so that they don't have to, it's pretty far away, the clubhouse from Village D.
For Village D?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're actually, the roadway connectivity, here, let me point.
Okay.
So that will come all the way up through. So actually, everybody from Village D could walk through the local streets and get to that site without getting out onto Veterans Parkway.
You're a traffic engineer. Do you think that people will drive in their cars from Village D? It does look like it's pretty far away. And is that a concern for doing an analysis on traffic?
So it's not really for the local roadways. Okay. They are local streets, they're local areas there. If it was a significant, I agree with you, if they had to go out to Veterans and make a lot of trips out to Veterans, and then lefts back, then we would take a look at that in that area. And yeah, there are going to be some trips, absolutely, to the clubhouse from the residential areas. But again, as Derek mentioned, these are trips that now will be localized into a local area as opposed to going out of the area to the same facilities.
Thanks.
Bill, given what the discussion, there's 20 parking spaces required. When Heather gave the presentation, I thought that was a bit much, because when I think of this type of facility, I think of people walking there. Is the standard for parking spaces, does that take into account the population that this facility is serving and the proximity of the uses and pedestrian and all of that?
Yeah, I'm going to defer that to Heather. Hopefully she has that answer.
Thank you, Heather Manzo, Assistant Planner. The parking standard for a private community center is what results in the 20 parking spaces. If the applicant had wished to modify that requirement, they could have done an engineer study using the ITE to produce adjusted numbers. They didn't request that. They were providing for actually excess parking to allow for the residents surrounding to also use a few of those spaces.
Okay, so the parking spaces are going to be shared use too, say for visitors coming there, they could also park in those same spaces. It's not just, because you mentioned that there was going to be signage, I think, that would say something to the effect of Clubhouse only.
That's actually not a great site plan to show you. Let me find a better one. Okay, so on this site plan, the entrance comes from here. The circular driveway is along Artera. Willow Ridge Road, Linton, and Edgelands all have parking on site, so it'll be on the parcel for the clubhouse, but there'll be parallel parking accessed directly from the street. Of those 25 spaces that are provided, 20 of them do need to be marked for specific use for the clubhouse during the times that the clubhouse is open. There are 5 excess spaces that do not need to have the signage posted reserving it for the clubhouse use specifically.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Commissioners, other questions? Discussion? Motion? Commissioner Weisky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the case of LDC 17-00002, Bella Vista Ranch Clubhouse, based upon compliance with the applicable findings, I move to approve the special use permit, subject to conditions, and I can make all of the findings.
Commissioner Weisky, are you going to include in your motion the change to condition number 6?
As proposed by the applicant's representative.
5, excuse
To
me.
5, yes.
Okay. Thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second? Commissioner Johnson.
Commissioner Johnson, I will second that, and I can also make the findings.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Good luck with your project. So just a reminder that we already heard item 6.4, so we are going to move on to item 6.5, which is LDC 16-00065, Westview Estates Master Plan Amendment. We will begin with a presentation from the applicant's representative. Stacy, welcome.
Good evening. While Michelle is pulling up my PowerPoint, Stacy Huggins with Wood Rogers. I'm here tonight on behalf of 6 Development, Mr. Jack Dolan. So if we have any questions for him, he'll be available to answer them. Thank you. So just a quick overview, a couple of locational slides here just to get you all in the general vicinity. Let's see if I can pull this here. These 2 parcels here represent the project area. It's approximately 81 acres. This parcels over here are the Palisades development that Lennar is doing right now. If you've been anywhere out near Damani Ranch High School, you've seen the construction that's happening. There's a lot of grading, a lot of big trucks. There's some movement going on out here. The pink on this map represents the current city of Reno boundaries. The purple represents the properties that are in the sphere of influence. This is just a little bit more zoomed in picture of this property. You can see on this map, I faded back the color to show these existing dirt roads on here. There is access from the north off of Desert Way out of the gun club. There's also access through these dirt roads, again, on the Palisades property, coming up from the southwest area, coming across here. So we are before you tonight asking for a master plan amendment to change the master plan from special planning area to single-family residential. These two parcels are also in the process of going through an annexation. We are scheduled to go to City Council for the annexation at the end of this month. So we're a little bit cart before the horse, but it's all going to come together. So by going to single-family residential as opposed to staying at special planning area, it will limit the density of these properties to 3 units to the acre. It allows us to develop lots that are consistent with the properties adjacent to it. The applicant has indicated that they will likely come in with a zone change to do single-family 15. Upon annexation, these two properties will come in with a mixed zoning designation of UT 40 and LLR 2.5. The LLR 2.5 is down here in some steeper areas, which I will show you on the next map. So when it comes in, they will move forward with a zoning amendment. Gosh, I feel all of a sudden that's really loud. Sorry. A zone change to single family 15. Again, there's legal access from the north on Desert Way and legal access from the west out of the Palisades project. This property has municipal services and infrastructure adjacent to it through the extension and the development of Palisades. There was a fiscal impact analysis that was done as part of the annexation that showed a positive revenue to the city of Reno as related to services. So this is a picture of the slope map that was done on these two properties. I know there's a lot of red on there, but as part of this master plan amendment, we have identified 2 major drainage ways. Those were identified because they drain from further up the hill over 100 acres. So they've been identified. They, on this map, show an 80-foot protected area on both sides of the center of the creek, so that will be untouched. Excuse me. We also understand that the slopes over 30% cannot be touched or are discouraged to be touched, and if they are developed, the applicant understands that they will have to mitigate that on a 2-to-1 ratio. As the hillside development analysis was done, we'll have to maintain 44 acres of the 81 acres in open space. That leaves approximately 37 acres of developable land, and based on the hillside development and the possible SF-15 zoning, they could get up to 70 units in the areas that you see here in the green. Primarily, we've only focused on the green and the yellow areas. Again, we will come back with a zone change, and if that is also approved, we will come in with a tentative map and a special use permit that will include specific parameters to protect the drainage ways and the hillsides and lot sizes. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll now get a presentation from staff. Joe, welcome.
Good evening, Chair, Commissioners. Great job, Stacy. Not much left to tell you about the project. She's pretty thorough on that, so I'll go ahead and give you the information about the NAB meeting. The NAB meeting did occur in May. From the NAB meeting, we heard comments such as, I'll just list off a few of the things they said. It's also in your staff report as an attachment. They wanted to see open space and hiking trails. They wanted a minimum of 15,000 square foot lots. They didn't want to see smaller lots. They had concerns about school impacts. Double Diamond and Damani High School are already overcrowded. They didn't like to see buildings up the hill. They were concerned about wildfire impacts impacts to water resources. They thought the annexation was appropriate and was appropriate for single-family development. They were concerned about an increase in traffic, and they wanted to see building within the city first prior to expanding outside of the city limits. The applicant also had their own neighborhood meeting as part of the master plan requirement on July 15th. They noticed 64 property owners in the area. They had 4 attendees at the meeting. Not a whole lot of comments from that meeting. The only comment I had was that people agreed that there was a need for additional housing and that some liked the desire for homes with views. Since this item has been scheduled, I haven't received any phone calls in opposition or support. We did receive one testimony today, a letter that came in. You should have received that earlier today, a few hours ago. Just in summary, that letter said they were okay with the project if it doesn't block access trails, walkability to the hills, or block roads. And they were hoping that the applicant would leave paths for public hiking and public access through the site. Give you an idea of some future meetings. There is a master plan amendment here tonight. If you recommend approval, your board recommends approval, it will go to City Council with your recommendation. That would possibly be on October 12th. After that, assuming they recommend approval, it will go on to the Truckee Meadow Regional Planning Agency for conformance review. November 9th is the meeting date for that. And then it would come back to council early December for their certification of the master plan amendment. So there are a few process steps that need to be accomplished before this project can be approved. Staff was able to make the 2 considerations were applicable for the Planning Commission for a master plan amendment. Those are included in the staff report. And if there's any questions, of course, I'm here to answer this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks very much. Thanks for outlining the process too with the public hearings. Appreciate that. Commissioners, I'm going to bring it back to us and ask for disclosures. Commissioner Snyder, I'm going to start with you.
Commissioner Schneider, just for clarification, I mean, item number 6.6 as well as 6.5 is both Wood Rogers tonight? Is that correct? Yes. Okay. I have ongoing business with Wood Rogers, and I must recuse myself from voting on this matter under Nevada law. Thank you.
Okay. So, well, you're welcome to come back for the liaison report after the public hearings, but won't blame you if you don't.
I'll try hard to hold myself here.
Thank you.
All right.
Commissioner Reno, we'll go back to you for disclosures.
I'm familiar with the site. I received an email and I spoke with the applicant's representative.
Commissioner Johnson, as did I.
Commissioner Gower, as did I.
Commissioner Hawkins, as would I.
Commissioner Weisky, as did I.
Okay. Thank you very much. This is a public hearing item, so I'm going to open the public comment portion of the item and ask for public comment. Michelle, do we have any public comment cards?
No, we do not.
Okay. Do not see anyone wishing to make a public comment, so I'm going to close the public comment portion of the item, bring it back to the commission for questions. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Joe, I'll ask this question of you just as a clarification. I think when Stacy mentioned how this process was going in terms of bringing it in and the zoning, that it's going to be annexed in under, as she was pointing it out. I'm looking for clarification based on the presentation that talked about up to 70 homes being in there, as opposed to the letter that was included in our packet from the school district indicating there'd be a total of 5 students in this development. Can you clarify, are we looking at 2 different things between what the letter is about and what the presentation for the ultimate build-out is?
Yes, I can. When the school district reviewed this application, they looked at what the current zoning is. They didn't anticipate what it could be. So they looked at it as general rule and high density rule. And with those, they looked at it as UT 40 and the LLR 2.5, because those are the zoning districts that, thank you, Michelle, when that zooms in? Okay. So upon annexation, there's a table in our code. I can't recall the number, but the table lets us know what a site is annexed into the city, what it becomes. It's a compatibility table. And upon annexation, the sites are automatically zoned UT 40 and LLR 2.5. And with those, the school district assumed UT 40, 1 unit, LLR 2.5, I think 4 units maximum, because that's, if they built it at those zoning standards, that's what they'd be allowed to build. So they analyzed it as 5 students. That's what they see. When the project moves forward again later, either with the rezone or with a tentative map, at those stages, the school district will be able to see how many units the applicant's proposing or what the zoning will accommodate, and at that point, they will reevaluate. And I talked to the school district about that, and they mentioned that they were going to do this, and I said, that's fine, because you will get a chance to revisit it at a later date when the zoning map amendment and the tentative map come forward. Then they'll see how many lots they can accommodate.
Okay, thank you. That was the clarification I was looking for.
Thank you.
Joe, I have a question for you. In terms of context for this site, it would be helpful for me to know where the site is in relation to the Truckee Meadows service area boundary. And I know the map wasn't included, and that's fine, but I think it's important, just in terms of context, to know that while it may seem that the properties that we're looking at here are kind of on the edge of the area, there are additional parcels beyond that that are still in the TMSA.
Yes, unfortunately, I don't have that map with me. Closest I have. Oof. Sorry, that's a little dark. You can see the subject site right here. Sorry, it's so dark. Palisades project just to the west. Damani High School a little further to the west. This area back in here, all the way to Story County, this rectangular shape right here that I'm kind of pointing out, that is the sphere of influence. That is the city's TMSA, and that's the area that could be coming forward at some point with annexation request, master plan amendments, rezone, maybe a PUD, I'm not quite sure. I know about, I might get these numbers wrong, I'm looking at Mr. Dolan. Few thousand acres, I think, are Dolan Ranch, and there's another couple thousand or maybe 1,500 that are the Hines? Sunny. Sorry. So there are a couple large property owners back there in those areas that may come forward. I've spoken to Mr. Dolan, and they may come forward with some future applications for annexation. So they are within the city sphere. They are within the TMSA. They are slated for future development within the city limits after going through the process of annexation and rezone and master plan amendment and tentative maps or PUDs, whatever the process is.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think that's good context, at least for me. Commissioners, other questions? Discussion? Motion? Commissioner Reno.
I'll make a discussion point here, and I expressed it to Mr. and Mrs. Higgins about the as far as when I look over at that area, you don't see housing developments going up the hill over on the Virginia Range. Not to say they can't, but if you go down further to the south, you do see some houses back there, but this is going to be a different, it's going to change the view of the city. I mean, it's going to change it, and then I often wonder if this is the right way to do it, to start climbing the hill there, and it'll just keep climbing. But maybe that's a discussion we can talk about. I mean, we climbed up Peavine. I'm not saying that this is not, I mean, it's not a deal killer necessarily for me, but I just would like to hear the other commissioners' thoughts on this.
I'll respond to that, Commissioner Gower. I mean, that's kind of where I was going and wanting to get the context of this site within, you know, what other things are going on in that area. I mean, when you look at that property, you drive out there, you look at Palisades, and then you look beyond that, it seems like you're really getting up that hill. But then there's so much more land even behind that that's, you know, within the sphere, it's within the TMSA. I mean, it's kind of the, you know, that's the push of development. So, I mean, in terms of the direction that we're headed, I'm not sure that, you know, what kind of changes you would be looking for there? Is it more of a design kind of thing, or?
Well, I mean, I look at you can see the slope map, it was quite
Right.
red. I mean, really red. And to get 70 units possibly, there's going to be a lot of grading on that site to get to 2-to-1 slopes. Some of these slopes are 4-to-1, 25%, just 3-to-1. But some of that red will get some development on it. And so you will, I guess part of me is I didn't know we'd ever get to this point to encroach upon the Virginia range, but here we are, and looks like Kevin might want to jump in and talk to me, talk about this.
Mr. Leisky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had similar concerns till I read through the packet, and even after I read through the packet, I had similar concerns. And how is it going to impact the southeast part of our valley and the South Meadows, Damani Ranch area? But then I had to go back and take a look at this is currently a special planning area. It has a development and residential unit count applied to it. So do the properties to the east of it going up the hill. And so what's the overall impact that our master plan doesn't already have on it? And when I looked at it that way and tried to compare the numbers, as long as what doesn't come back before us later, and remember it does have to come back before us later, if it were to change and go to something high density, I will make it perfectly clear now to the property owner and that that's going to be a tough one for me to deal with. At going to minimum 15,000 square foot lots, I don't think that it's that much different than what Washoe County has zoning for it right now and what could be built out. And so therefore, I was able to make the findings, and I can vote in favor of it.
Mr. Johnson, you want to weigh
Commissioner
in?
Johnson. It's interesting, Commissioner Weisky, because I think I went into it with the same thing, and as Commissioner Reno attested to, I even mentioned it to the applicant's representative when I spoke to him. I don't know if I got there as easily as you did. I mean, I still look at that, and I guess maybe I question some of the decisions maybe in the past, but obviously we're not here to revisit the master plan as it's been put together. That's a couple meetings from now, I think. But I will say I was concerned as kind of going into it, but then as I drove out, sorry, I didn't ride. I drove out, and there is a lot of development that's out there. And I was concerned that, when you look at the map and you see how far out it is, I mean, it seems like it's a long way, but that I think one of the things that I could appreciate is that there's infrastructure in place. The roads are substantial. There's capacity to accommodate growth out there. I have concerns about building up the hill, but that's not what we're discussing right now. I mean, I think that's the issue, is that it's going to come back before us. There's going to be the opportunity to see what do they want to zone it to. There's going to be opportunity to look at the way they address that hillside development. So I can reluctantly look at it from that standpoint, and what's in front of me agree with. I think my eye beyond this point will be very specific in terms of what we're doing, because this is really the first one that would be on the hill. I mean, Palisades are there, but it's still sort of an extension. This ramps up onto that range. So I appreciate you bringing it up. I appreciate everybody having the same concerns. And so
Commissioner Weisky, if I can just piggyback on that, Commissioner Johnson, if at any point I didn't think something was coming back to us, and if it hadn't been described in the staff report as future projects, not lines on a paper or designations, that because it's coming back to us, I feel comfortable in making my decision and my vote tonight. So, yeah, I'm like you. I'm glad we're all on the same page, and it will be scrutinized when it comes back before us, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Great discussion. Additional discussion, or are we ready for a motion? Commissioner Johnson?
Yes. In keeping with the discussion that we've had, I'll make the motion in case number LDC 16-00065, Westview Estates Master Plan Amendment. Based upon compliance with the applicable considerations and findings, I move to approve the attached resolution adopting the Master Plan Amendment and to recommend that City Council approve the Master Plan Amendment by resolution, subject to conformance review by Regional Planning Agency. And with that, and with the, what's the proper term here? It's not conditions on this one. Well, both A and B, the findings, I can make the findings.
Okay. Thank you very much. Have a motion. Do I have a second? Commissioner Reno?
Commissioner Reno, I'll second it. And I love the discussion we had, and I'm glad that we'll see this again. I can make the findings.
A motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you very much. We look forward to continuing the process with you. So moving on to the next item on our agenda, which is item 6.6. It's LDC 17-00005, Storewise Reno. I'd like to welcome the applicant's representative for a presentation.
Good evening, Derek Kirkland representing the applicant with Wood Rogers. We do have the applicant, Mr. Chad Hagar, here. So we are here before you tonight to ask for a special use permit for two things. One, to construct a mini warehouse facility in the transit corridor overlay zone, and two, for grading activities that result in cuts greater than 20 feet and or fills greater than 10 feet. The site is located just east of the Golden Valley Road off of North Virginia Street on the south side, excuse me. So the site is currently zoned North Virginia Street Transit Corridor Overlay. So kind of running through some of the project stats here. So the proposed project overall is 6.69 acres. We're requesting 85,000 square feet of indoor personal storage space. And you can see the indoor storage space is kind of, let me use this, where you see the building steps. So these are all the indoor storage space. We also have 40,000 square feet of covered RV, which is in the rear portion of the site. And also 2,500 square feet, two-story manager's unit with the office on the bottom and living quarters on the top. Operations will be 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. daily. As I mentioned before, there will be an on-site resident manager. We'll have 24-hour security and surveillance system that's included in the site with cameras throughout. Landscaping requirements, since this is in the transit corridor overlay, we are in the mixed use, so we have a higher landscape requirement, which we were able to meet with the site. The requirement's 20%, we're actually providing 22%. A lot of the overage is North Virginia Street, the right-of-way, we're actually landscaping a portion of the right-of-way, so the requirements for expanding North Virginia Street actually didn't go quite to the right-of-way, so we're adding that 5-foot sidewalk, and then we'll landscape up to that as well, so that's why you see a little increase there in the landscape. We're providing 198 trees, and then also I'd like to point out along the entire perimeter of the site, we'll be providing evergreen trees for screening purposes. The fills cuts are anticipated at less than 15 feet, so we trigger the special use permit for grading essentially in this rear portion of the site where we'll be filling over 10 feet, and it's approximately max fill of about 30 feet, and it's a relatively small area, only about 7% of the site. Parking and traffic, we're required 10 spaces. We're providing 10 spaces. There's eight customer spaces out front with 7 standard stalls and 1 handicap stall. And then we'll be providing, in the end of these, there will be two garages that will be available for the manager's unit. Minimal traffic generation with these sites. Basically looking at code, we generate 35 trips during the peak hour, which is a Saturday from 12 to 1, and only 23 trips during the week PM peak. We're providing, there'll be not 24 hour, but there will be a gated access with a keypad that will be available through the operation hours of 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Down here to the east, we'll have an emergency only gated access. Through the majority of the site, we're providing a minimum of 28 feet drive aisles. So essentially, we're calling it the fire route. We also create 30-foot drive aisles, and I think this one's even larger than 30 feet to accommodate these larger vehicles that'll be parking in the rear. Also creates that fire access, and then there's a couple interior aisles where there'll be fire hydrants placed basically on the outsides of the building. Where their hose will reach, we did 20-foot drive aisles. So architecture on the site, we do provide along North Virginia Street, we're going to provide vertical and horizontal articulation. Also on the end caps that are visible from North Virginia Street, we'll get that same architectural treatment. We're providing, in terms of horizontal articulation, we're providing faux windows. We're providing color changes, material changes. You can see kind of might be a little hard to see here, but you can see kind of like a rock trim. It's more, with vertical articulation, you can see along the sides of the site, we'll have stepped elevation between the buildings to create that vertical articulation. Again, we'll be using this as kind of a screening wall for the interior of the site, and again, you'll see the color and material changes there. And then this same wall treatment will be placed along so let me go back here. So we do have the RV parking along the back, and so that wall will be placed along there as well. So basically the entire interior of the site will be screened, and the interior buildings will be your standard storage shed buildings, but the exterior buildings will all include the architectural elements. Lighting throughout the site, there will be no overhead lighting. It will all be low mount interior LED pack type lighting, so minimal lighting. I believe they'll be on timers as well, so should have no lighting impacts from the site. Here's a cross section of the site, so you can see down here at the south end we have the Union Pacific Railroads right here. We will be realigning the drainage ditch area, and this is basically where you see this dark area right here is the over 10 feet of fill. It's basically that right there. There's some bad material on the site that's going to be removed, and then it'll be placed back here with proper material for the buildings on top of that. So, and you can see the vertical articulation that goes down the side of the site. And that's the basis of the presentation. So if you have any questions, I'll be here to answer them. Thank you.
Okay, Derek, thank you very much. And for a presentation from staff, Evan, welcome.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the Commission. Evan McKenzie, Assistant Planner. So my presentation here mostly mimics Derek's, so I'm going to try to keep it short. With the basic facts, many storage uses do require a conditional use permit. Outdoor RV storage does as well, and it generally must be accessory or subordinate to the mini storage use, which in this case it is. About 2/3 of the site is dedicated to indoor and 1/3 to outdoor. And then, of course, as Derek mentioned, cuts and fills do require a special use permit. One question that may come up and did come up during review of this was whether or not residential adjacency also triggered a special use permit, which in this case it does not. It is near residential properties, but there was not a requirement for a special use permit specifically for that purpose. However, of course, the articulation standards do apply because it is nearby. It is zoned mixed use. The use can be approved through the special use permit process. Not a whole lot of conditions were recommended by staff. As you'll note in the staff report, there were no discretionary conditions recommended. We did not get any comments from the NAB or other parties that would have sent us in that direction. And so it's a pretty short list of conditions. And that's really about it, unless there are any questions.
Okay. Thank you very much. We'll get back to you on the questions, I'm sure.
Okay.
Before we get to public comment, going to ask the commissioners for disclosures. Commissioner Weisky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I visited the site.
As did I, but I also attended the NAB meeting.
Okay. Commissioner Gower, no disclosures.
Commissioner Johnson, I visited the site.
Commissioner Reno, as did I.
Okay. This is a public hearing item, and I do have one public comment card. So I'm going to open the public comment portion of this item and ask for public comment. The public comment card that I have is from Suzanne Robbins, who said she was not sure if she wanted to make a comment. So I'll leave that up to you. If you could just state your name when you get to the microphone there, and you'll have 3 minutes. Thanks.
Yes, I'm Suzanne Robbins, and I wasn't sure if I am in agreement of the project or not in agreement. That's what that was about. I live in Peavine Heights, which is the homes that are right behind this intended facility. And we have around 100 homes in that Peavine Heights area. There are around 20 homes that will be within sight of the facility, and my home is one of them. Presently, we have sagebrush back there and a train track, and I sure wish it could stay that way, but progress goes on. The Amazon warehouses are within my eyesight of my home. Our home, it is around 1/3 of a mile away from the homes that face the Storewise building. There have been other businesses that were going to go into the Storewise piece of property, but the soil quality was poor and those businesses were shelved. So I just want that to be known. If it is built, I just want it to be built well with street curb appeal, and that it would be an asset to our North Virginia corridor. Right now, the North Virginia corridor has parts of it that are seedy with dirt lots and junkyards. This will be the third storage facility in a 1-mile radius. So I just would appreciate an effort to improve our area in that North Virginia corridor instead of any kind of further decline, because that is, again, a lot of storage units. My concerns, first of all, I liked many aspects of what I just saw, so thank you for your considerations. I am concerned about what I did see, though, about the lighting. I'm concerned that the lighting could be at level or above our homes. So I would like that to be something to think about. With the Amazon warehouses, our lighting has doubled. Our back bedrooms face Amazon. It will also face Storewise. And so we have to have more coverings so the light stays out of our residences. I'm concerned about the wattage of light. Let me see here. The height of the sign, it looks like there's going to be an advertisement sign, according to what I saw. I'm concerned about that. Let's see, the hours of operation, I am no longer concerned about that. The 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Sounds like a good idea. The access after 7 p.m., people will not be able to access their RVs after 7 p.m. I need assurance of that.
And Suzanne, if you could just wrap up.
I am.
Okay.
Landscaping and fencing, thank you for the evergreens. I appreciate that. The walls sound appealing as well. We won't have to look at the RVs and the storage unit. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else who would like to make a comment on this item? Okay. I will go ahead and close the public comment period and bring it back to the commission for questions. I'll go ahead and start. Evan, would you mind just, or maybe Derek, just elaborating a little bit on the lighting aspects of the property and give us a little bit of context when you do with the surrounding development and how it might contribute?
So Evan McKenzie, Assistant Planner for the record. I need to pull this out of the pile here. So we do not have a photometric plan that was submitted with the application. What we do have is a spec sheet for the light pack that they are proposing to use. It's pretty dark, you can't see it very well, but this up here, it is a hooded light, and if it is not placed above the roof line of the buildings, it should not send any light above the buildings, and I think hopefully our applicant will be able to concur with that.
Derek Kirkland, Wood Rogers for the record. Yeah, could we pull up the site plan again? I'll kind of give a demonstration too of how, and I believe we will provide that, correct? There's a condition? Yes. I think there is a condition that will provide a photometric plan prior to a building permit, so. So we do have, so basically the way the lighting's set up is all the lighting will be on the front faces of the building. So essentially, no lighting that will be on top of the buildings. And then the way the site plan's laid out is all the lighting is basically going to be going away from the residences that are back here, which you can see there's about a 300 to 400 foot separation between our buildings will be about in this area. This is about 300 feet here and about 400 feet there. So the railroad right away is 200 feet. And then going to the cross section, you can see that the railroad, we're about the same elevation as the railroad. So you'll see that basically between this distance and these rear buildings, the lighting is basically going to be shielded by that screening. So.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Johnson.
Mr. Johnson, question for Derek, if you would, please. There was discussion in part of your presentation about the building articulation, and you show it as all of your buildings are stepping down the side, so that would be the north and south elevations of the property. However, the rendering you showed, which is on Virginia Street, showed no vertical articulation, horizontal articulation. It's just a material change and then a 1-2-story issue. Is that the intent on that front facade there?
Yeah, so on the front, and I do believe, I don't, let me see if I think I might have the grading plan. I believe there is actually a step that would break that up. In this front building, and then also you can see that this front building's offset a little bit. Oh, sorry. So you'll see kind of on this front there is a small step right here that will break that building up, and then also this manager's building is offset a little bit as well, so there will be a little bit of vertical articulation.
I think the key term there is a little bit. We have some requirements in the code, correct me if I'm wrong, for articulation standards, both horizontal and vertical. I know we haven't conditioned that, but I have some concerns that you don't have enough, especially on that Virginia Street elevation. I'm less concerned on the north and the south, but I think we heard from one of the from public comment, some concern about Virginia Street. Maybe this is an item for discussion here, but I wanted to make sure you had articulation shown. And then I think I have a secondary question for you on the lighting, just to follow up. Is there any planned pole lighting, or is it all intended to be wall pack on the project?
All wall pack. There's no overhead lighting that we're showing.
And that lighting will be on into the site 24 hours a day, even though the hours of operation would be ending at 7 o'clock.
Yeah, and I believe they'll have timers on them, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, they'll have timers. So.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Hawkins?
Thanks, Chair. I'm concerned about the lighting as well, and I don't know if I can go along with this evening without taking another look at the property, as well as even meeting with the applicant and seeing what we're talking about.
Evan, Derek mentioned that there was a condition related to providing a photometric plan. I'm looking for that and I'm not seeing it. Am I missing it?
Grabbing the wrong stuff here. Sorry. Evan McKenzie, Assistant Planner. We do not have a specific condition for the photometric plan. However, we could add that specifically. I know the commission has done that sometimes in the past. Alternately, the commission could consider that covered by condition 1, which addresses complying with all applicable city codes. So I would certainly not be opposed to adding that as on the staff's part, if the commission wanted to have that as a specific condition of approval, that a photometric plan be submitted.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that I was
Mr. Chairman?
missing something. Yes, Commissioner Weisky.
Thank you. I have, in discussion, I have 2 proposed conditions, the photometric being one of them, and it's the same verbiage that we used earlier on a storage unit, along with the condition for hours of operation. And although we have some catch-all conditions, it's not our standard operating procedure to use the catch-alls. It's our standard operating procedure to spell them out individually, and we should look at doing that more often down the road so that the applicant, the builders, whomever, understand exactly what they're looking at in the future. And I think as a commission tonight, we need to clarify some of those things.
Okay. Let's make sure we don't have any other questions, and then we can get on to discussion. Okay.
Oh, I have a question.
Commissioner Reno.
Let's Evan, why don't you come up?
I'll just stay up.
Actually, maybe the applicant.
Yes.
The height of the building, the house, how tall is that?
The height of the storage units?
Not the storage units. I'm talking about the residential unit right at the entrance.
Oh, it is a 2-story. I don't know if the elevation specifically identifies that.
And the reason I ask is, as I look at the plans, I'm really getting to the point of the light, or the pole right there. In fact, I just saw it come up.
I'll see if I can get that close up.
So I'm worried more or less about the identifying, the advertising pole. That's, at least in the letter, it says it's 35 feet tall. And I think the building's probably 35 feet tall, but inside the renderings, it looks much taller than the building. And so I'm wondering, is it the 35, I assume it's to the top of the advertising sign, correct?
I am going to defer to the applicant's representative to answer that.
Derek, you want to clarify that?
Yeah, so the Derek Kirkland, Wood Rogers for the record. So I don't believe the architectural renderings specify the specific height of that two-story building. However, I believe there is a section in the mixed use that talks about limitations on height, and I believe this would be a standard two-story building. And then the pole sign we'd have to come back with a permit at final building, with the final building permit to specify the sign details. So.
Maybe Claudia can, it looks like she's looking, but maybe you can help me out with the exact height. Is it the height to the top of the sign? I guess my concern is, we've done a lot of shielding in the back. And yeah, all the lights will be aimed downward, except for you might have this pole sign in the distance that you can see, an illuminated sign. And I just wanted to make sure, and maybe Derek can answer that. I know it steps down towards Virginia, but elevation-wise, will you be able to be seeing it across the way at those from the residential? The advertising pole is my concern.
Evan McKenzie, Assistant Planner for the record. So we typically do not process or approve signs as part of a larger project since they require a special permit. I can tell you what the limitations would be for when a sign permit comes in. Would that help?
Oh, yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. So in the mixed-use zone, maximum height for freestanding sign is 8 feet. However, the maximum sign height can be 25 feet or 35 feet if the parcel fronts a street that is posted at 35 miles per hour or greater. And I believe North Virginia is 40, correct? And so they could go up to 35 feet and then have a maximum area of 125 square feet. They would also, of course, be eligible for wall signage, although none is shown here. Again, we can't really specifically approve any through this permit, or generally we would not. It's my understanding.
I'm going to jump in. Claudia Hansen, Planning Manager. So you do have a finding G. Project signage is in character with the project architecture and is compatible with or complementary to the surrounding uses. So you could condition time, place, and manner of that sign. For instance, if you don't want it taller than the highest point of the structure, there was discussion on lighting. You could condition to turn the light off on the sign at 10 o'clock at night or whatever. You can condition those types of things, and there is a finding that you need to make on that.
Perfect. Great. Thank you for that. And maybe the other commissioners can jump in on this discussion. But my concern is, yeah, we're doing everything we can to help shield this from the neighbors, but you might see this sign out in the distance. And I would ask that we maybe limit it to the no higher than the actual building there, but then also limit it to the maximum height of the property at the furthest, I guess it would be the furthest south. So I know it steps down, so you could probably figure out, they could, when they did the designs, how high that is, so that you can't see it over the buildings is my concern.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for Claudia for clarification.
Okay.
Claudia, in their, in the packet, they show a pole sign. It's up on the screen right now. Did we redo our sign ordinance so that pole signs were not allowed?
Claudia Hansen, Planning Manager, we have that in a draft ordinance. It has not been adopted yet.
Oh, it has not been adopted yet.
But you do need to make that finding of it's in character with the project architecture. So that is something you could condition if you want it to be a monument with architectural treatments from the building. That would be appropriate.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson?
I actually do have another question for Derek, if you would, please. I noticed in the packet there was some information about phasing of the project. In light of some of the issues that we're hearing here, could you maybe with a plan indicate what the proposed phasing is? Because certainly if it's not all built at once, there could be some issues with some of the things that we're trying to do not actually occurring. So could you maybe with the site plan, walk me through what's proposed
Yeah.
for the phasing.
Derek Kirkland with Wood Rogers for the record. Could you put back up our site plan, please?
Making Michelle multitask over
I
there
know.
tonight.
She's pretty good. So I think, and Chad, feel free to jump in. But so I believe if phase one were just this lower portion, essentially what we put in the project description and what the proposed phasing would be is to at a minimum build the exterior buildings so that essentially all the screening, all this landscaping, all that would go in to screen this interior site. And then as we move up to phase two, which would potentially be this upper site, all the same thing, all the exterior buildings would be built so that all the screening goes in place before the interior buildings. And that's essentially what we placed in our application.
Thank you. So now I'm going to have a follow-up for Evan on this one.
Yes.
One of the items that you mentioned for outdoor storage is that it cannot be the primary use for the project.
That is correct.
So from a phasing standpoint, they would actually, if they built all of the perimeter, they would also have to build the interior storage units in order to comply with that requirement for the accessory use. Is that correct?
Evan McKenzie, Assistant Planner. We did not go that far into detail, but one could certainly read that, and so I would not disagree. Is that a reasonable answer?
I think that's a reasonable answer, enough to give me room for discussion here on the panel. So, thank you.
Okay, commissioners. Are there any
Chair,
other questions?
if I may.
Oh, Commissioner Hawkins. I wasn't sure if you had a question or not. I apologize.
Well, I'm looking at this monument or pole sign up here, and we're concerned about the neighbors to the south, but we've not mentioned the neighbors to the north in the mobile home park, and they're closer to the sign, more so than the property on the south side. I'm concerned about the south side, and I really want to see it and get into it before I say yes. And I'm also concerned about the sign and the illumination going through the mobile home park. I'm set on seeing the site again and talking with the people there.
Okay. So that's a good segue into discussion, and I think we have two major discussion items, the lighting and the signage. Why don't we start with the lighting, if we could? Commissioner Weisky, you had some proposed conditions that might address that issue. Do you want to share those?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Proposed condition, and it can be number whatever, anything after 7, but the verbiage is, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall provide a photometric plan demonstrating compliance with minimum parking lot lighting, and it's based upon RMC 18.12.1105A and 5, while also utilizing state-of-the-art dark skies lighting techniques such as fixture screening, light spill containment, direct lighting, downward, etc., RMC section 18.08.301A13. That is the condition number 6 from our previous Sharlands memory and storage facility that we approved an hour ago. Which is pretty much our standard photometric lighting condition.
Would it help the commission to put that condition up there? Are we pretty clear on what Commissioner Weisky's saying there? Okay.
Yeah, number 6.
So that would be the first condition.
You want me to put it up on the overhead for you?
Yeah, why don't we put that up there real quick, just so we can see it?
I need that back, though, because there's 2 more conditions on there. Evan, that's condition number 6 on that sheet.
Just cleaning up my mess.
Okay. Like you said, that's a fairly standard condition for us.
Yes.
The other,
The other is to borrow from condition number 4. I've written the number 8 next to it. The hours of operation for public access to the storage facility shall be 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., 7 days a week, as we heard earlier in testimony, for clarification. Again, I'm borrowing from the Sharlands document, so I didn't modify it completely before going up there.
okay, we'll forgive you on that one.
Thank you.
Is there
And
another one?
There's another one. Evan, if I can get you to save me from walking all the way up there, if you would slide that document up so that my handwritten notes at the bottom of the page are there you go. That's a condition for the sign that I just kind of scratched out real quick. Basically, it's what it says is sign based to be a monument sign style with architectural features to match the building architecture, and overall sign height not to exceed 5 feet less than the overall height of the building. So in other words, even though we're saying that 35-foot tall sign could be built there, it would have to be 5 feet less than what the highest point of the building is that it's in front of, so that it's protected, light spillage is protected from going south. As far as going north, from what I see, based upon the documents provided to us, it's not a rotating sign, it's a stationary sign, and it faces, in the case of using a compass, it would be facing east and west, facing the directions of North Virginia. It would not necessarily be facing north to the mobile home park, as Commissioner Hawkins suggested that his concern, and maybe that helps him to get beyond that as a concern.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Weissey's given us some very good food for thought there. Appreciate that. Commissioners' responses to those conditions. Commissioner Reno. Oh, Commissioner Hawkins, let's start.
Commissioner Hawkins, for the record. I'm good with that monument sign and what Commissioner Weisske's done. I've still got a little concern on the southern portion of any light emitted from either the storage units or the second-story residence without seeing what type of fencing, block wall, I'm still concerned. We've taken care of the front part.
Okay. Commissioner Reno.
So I came up with some language as well, and I'll read this off.
You want to put yours up there too?
If you can read my chicken scratch. Sure, I'll just read it, and we can talk about it. I said the site standalone sign shall be no higher than the highest building of the storage unit along the south property line, and shall not be higher than the top plate of the second story. So kind of going along with what Commissioner Weisske said, but I limit it to the top plate of the second story. The sign shall be a monument sign consistent with building architecture. So my concern is, as I look at it, do you want this? Is if I count my contours right, it looks like it's a 9-foot drop down there. Plus you have a wall for the RVs and so forth. So you probably won't ever get this high, but just to limit it, so from the south they can't see the sign, is my concern.
I don't disagree with you, Commissioner Weisske. I don't disagree with you using the top plate versus the top of the building. My question to staff is, Evan, when this project comes back before you for review and approval, can you determine the top plate elevation based upon normal drawings that are submitted? Or is it better with ease to determine overall height of the building for the top of the sign?
The building permit plans should have elevations that detail the height of the building, and so that should
And the
not be
top plate
difficult.
or just the top of the building?
If we can typically scale, to within 6 inches. I'm sorry, Evan McKenzie for the record.
Okay.
So we should be able to reasonably assure that the sign is not higher than you specify.
And just to clarify, Evan, I think where Commissioner Weiske's going is we I think are onto something with Commissioner Reno's condition, Commissioner Weiske's concern, and I have the same concern that when we propose this condition, one, that it's able to be interpreted, and two, it doesn't present an unnecessary burden on staff to be able to figure this out. So,
As the person currently on staff who processes sign permits, I don't want to have to interpret it either.
okay. Well said.
Commissioner, Reno, I'm good with 5 feet then, but I'd also ask that we try to limit it to the back. Somehow the visual from the back too.
No, I think you were onto something with the contours and the drop there.
Commissioner
Look-
Johnson, if I could, I think that kind of dovetails with my concern that is much about the phasing and the issues. I mean, if they're building this as the first phase, and we've got a condition in there that limits it to the back building, that back building may not even exist when the sign comes into play. So I feel comfortable that aligning it with just the building it's adjacent to, 5 feet below that, I think just looking at the grading, we've got, as you say, about a 9 to 10 feet plus what would, for RV storage be another 10-foot high wall. You're going to be 20 feet in the back, which roughly with a 2-story building, less 5 feet, you're going to be in the same ballpark. So I would.
Commissioner Johnson, if I might just jump in real quick, maybe we modify my condition, the last sentence where it says the overall height of the building, the overall height of the manager's building, and make it very specific.
And that was what I was going to recommend, the adjacent 2-story building, however
Then,
you want.
then we keep it, we know right where it's at.
Right.
And that's going to be built in phase 1 because they need it for operational purposes.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, really
Yes.
quick, Commissioner Reno, maybe I can ask Claudia Hanson a question about signage. So they can put the signage on the pole or on the monument, but what about on the building? It sounds like that's required, they can do that. Can it be illuminated, and how does that work? Because it'll be facing the residential properties across the way.
Claudia Hanson, Planning Manager. I don't believe those would be facing the residential. Derek, if you want to address that on the wall signs.
Okay. Derek Kirkland, Wood Rogers for the record. So if we did any building signage, feel free to jump in. They would not face the residents. Okay, yeah, there would be, anything that we would do would be along North Virginia Street.
Mr. Chairman, anybody speaking has to step up to the podium, speak into the mic. Point of order, please.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Derek, if you'd like to have your applicant come clarify, you certainly can.
Chad Hager, the applicant. There would be no illuminated signage that would be facing any of the residences. It would be on North Virginia and not facing any of the residences. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Commissioner Hawkins, you've been quiet in the discussion. I know where you stood earlier. Would you like to comment further?
Mr. Hawkins, I think everything I've heard so far is right on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Johnson.
Commissioner Johnson, I'm still struggling with how to maybe add another condition. I appreciate the discussion about the phasing and the idea of building the perimeter first as point of discussion. However, I think I'd like to see that conditioned, that whether it's first phase or second phase, that if we're not building what's basically facing towards the west as a part of the project, we are creating an interior space where the lighting spill out that we've been trying to avoid with the walls on the back would come into play. So, and maybe there's some discussion that we can throw around here in terms of how to condition that, but I think at a minimum, since it has been indicated as a phased project, that in some way we require the fact that the perimeter of the whatever phase must be completed as a part of the package. And then I guess the discussion about whether the interior having to go along with that in order to meet the zoning requirements is another issue. But I think from a conditioning standpoint, I would like to see something in there that requires the perimeter buildings to be constructed in their entirety, and that no phased construction can occur without that happening, which the applicant has indicated is what he wants to do. But I think in keeping with what we're doing here, I'd like to see that as a requirement in the permit. But I'll, I guess, throw that open for some discussion on the commission as well.
Commissioner Weisky?
Thank you. Question for staff. Doesn't our lighting ordinance prohibit light bleeding from over the property? And if that's the case, then the photometric should be provided based upon phased construction. And if the building isn't built to the perimeter, then their photometric has to show that there's no light spillage going over the property line. And I believe that's the way review and ordinance is handled currently today. But I'd like staff to verify that, please.
That is correct.
Thank you, Claudia.
And I can appreciate that, Commissioner Johnson. However, you can still see the light. I think that's the issue that we heard from the comment, that there's no light spill, but I'm concerned about the fixture actually being visible. So, and I understand the difference in a photometric plan versus the light that's actually getting to you, but you can see the light even if there's no light from that arriving on your property. So that's what my concern is, because that was what we had heard from the applicant in terms of some of the other issues that are out there. That's the reason I'm bringing it up. I completely agree with the requirement for the photometric plan, but this is more a visibility of the fixture as opposed to the actual light impacting the property. So that's why I bring it up.
Okay. So just to recap then, we have 4 proposed conditions. We have the 2 that, or the 3, I should say, that Commissioner Weisky proposed with the photometric plan, changing the hours of operation, changing the sign to a monument sign with the height specified, and then Commissioner Johnson's proposed phasing condition. I'll just start off by saying that I can support all 4 of those conditions, and I do appreciate where Commissioner Johnson is going with the phasing, since phasing was discussed, and I think it goes along with what we're trying to accomplish here in terms of shielding any potential light impacts from the site. So I can support those 4 conditions, but I would like to hear from the other commissioners on those.
Commissioner Reno, I can support them as well.
Are we ready for a motion? Commissioner Weisky?
I can support it also. Whoever wants to make a motion, go ahead.
Commissioner Weisky, please.
Oh, okay. If you are ready, then, Mr. Chairman, in the case of LDC 17-00005, Storewise Reno, based upon compliance with the applicable findings, I move to approve the special use permit for LDC 17-00005 as written in the staff report, along with the addition of 4 conditions as we have described. Claudia, do I need to read all 4 conditions in, or do you
Yes,
think
please.
Okay, then I'll need my document back from the podium. And Commissioner Johnson, I will ask you to read in your motion. You can do that right now if you'd like to while we're waiting for my document.
You're implying that I have it written out? I would like to add the condition that, as in the case of a phased project, that the perimeter of whatever phase is constructed be completed as part of the phasing.
Okay, so that is the first additional condition. The second one is the hours of operation for public access to the storage facility shall be 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., 7 days a week. The third added condition is prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall provide a photometric plan demonstrating compliance with the minimum parking lot lighting, RMC 18.12.1105, paragraph A5, while also utilizing state-of-the-art dark skies lighting techniques such as fixture screening, light spill containment, direct lighting downward, etc., referencing RMC section 18.08.301, paragraph A13. The fourth added condition is sign base to be a monument sign style with architectural features to match the building architecture, and overall sign height not to exceed 5 feet less than the overall height of the management building. And I can make all the findings now.
Okay. Thank you. Before I ask for a second, well done on pulling all that together. Before I ask for a second, I just want to make sure that the commissioners are clear on those conditions, staff's clear on the conditions, and the applicant is clear on the conditions. Okay. Derek, did you want to?
Yeah, Derek Kirkland with Wood Rogers for the record. I just wanted to say that we concur with all the conditions.
Okay, thank you. And just to say, before we get to the second, I appreciate the discussion. I think that was very good. Excellent job working through those concepts. Evan, yes.
Mr. Chairman, I just had one question for clarification. The lighting condition was basically verbatim from the Sharlands case, correct?
Number 6, yes.
Okay, so that's what we'll pull.
And Michelle has my document now. She'll transpose it completely. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Johnson, I will second that motion with the added conditions, and I can also make the findings.
Okay, have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, commissioners. Good luck with your project.
Thanks.
We will move out of the public hearing items now and into item number 7, Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Liaison Report. Commissioner Weisky.
Mr. Chairman, nothing to add. We do have a meeting coming up next Wednesday at Washoe County Chambers on 9th Street. And we did get, Claudia, I don't know the last update I gave, that City Council had approved our recommendation for the third person, which is Peter Gower, I believe, our chairman?
Yes.
Okay, so Commissioner Reno, Commissioner Gower, Commissioner Weisky will be in attendance at that meeting.
Looking forward to it. Thank you. On item number 8 now, staff announcements. Claudia.
Okay, Claudia Hansen, Planning Manager, and I'll just do all these together. Update from the last City Council meeting. We had no regular hearings during the day on the 24th. The Southtown Crossing Shopping Center sign has still not been decided. It's been a few months since you saw that here. It was continued again. That will be renoticed. I believe they're shooting for the 28th of September, but we haven't got confirmation on that yet, but I will keep you posted on how that goes. The other case that was heard, these were both on appeal. The Sierra Senior Care PUD amendment, I'm sorry, this wasn't an appeal, this was just going to the 6 o'clock. Sierra Senior Care PUD amendment, your recommendation was overturned and City Council denied that request.
Is that being remanded back to us, or it's just?
No.
we
That
don't
was
get to
just
see that
denied.
again. Okay.
No. And that's all I have. Oh, actually, we have a new planner starting on Monday. So Silas Scarborough is coming here from Kansas, and he will start Monday. He will be doing mostly, if not all, building permit review. But I'm sure we will get him in here to get a little FaceTime with the Planning Commission as well. So it'll be a new face and name on our list.
Excellent. Okay. Item number 9, Commissioner suggestions for future agenda items. Commissioner Hawkins?
I have one thing I should have brought up during the reading of the minutes or the approval of the minutes was when we looked at the estates number 2 out there in Lemon Valley, there was no fire report and they never did get back to us. And I'm concerned about that because they indicated that it was 10 minutes from fire station number 9, which means they would have to go in and put in sprinkler systems in the homes. I need to know about that. I think that needs to be discussed.
Okay, we can bring a report back to you on that. And I am working with the fire marshal right now to get a little bit more robust comments from the fire department.
Mr. Chairman, I have a request of staff, and that is NAB comments are very important to us. And I'd like to see that all the NAB comments are attached to all of the staff reports. And if we don't, I mean, it's just important. Every now and then I pick up something that I just want to ask to show the NABs that we're paying attention and their comments are important to us. And we may ask it in a general question on our own, but sometimes it's nice to ask directly off of their sheets, and that's why I like to read them.
I'd like to add to that. We had several people out in the audience tonight. I don't know where they came from, but they were here on one of the projects that we were discussing. I'm trying to think it was probably for out there, the storage unit we just finished talking about. But when I made the NAB meeting, I didn't hear a lot of comments about this. However, I know Ray Lake always sends in a NAB comment, and I didn't see anything from Ray.
And sometimes we do get people attending the meeting for other reasons other than supporting or, you know, in opposition of an item. So I'm not sure why folks were here tonight either.
If I
Claudia?
can jump in, sure. So the NAB meetings are not noticed unless you're on their actual distribution list. Our public hearings, we do send out the postcards to 750 feet. So we do hit a broader radius from the project site. So that's typically why we do see more people coming to these. So the folks that came tonight probably aren't on the distribution list for the NAB meetings. And it is our intent to attach all the NAB comments. We don't always get comments from all the NABs, or we get very limited comments, but it is our intent, whatever we get from them, we do attach to the staff report.
Claudia, can I add to that? Most of you probably would never know because you don't see them when we get them, but more often than not, Evan McKenzie, for the record, when we receive the NAB comments, we receive one PDF from the liaison. And so whatever was scanned in, that's what we get, and we give the whole PDF, even if there's a bunch of sheets that say no comment. And so we don't often get the written sheets. Usually, if anything was turned in at the NAB, whatever the liaison gets, that gets scanned as one document, and that's what you get. So just kind of as an FYI.
And I'll add even more. So we were doing a NAB training this month. It's coming up. I forget the date at the moment, but we do have a NAB training coming up, and I am going to go over the comments with them in the comment forms.
Mr. Chairman, can
Yes.
just to reiterate, the NAB, it's voluntary, right, Claudia, to go to the NAB. So we may get projects that have no comments because they decided not to go to the NAB. Is that correct?
Excuse me. That is the old way. We actually automatically put everything on the NAB now. It is voluntary for them to come to the NAB, but we automatically put it on the distribution list, or on their agendas, I should say.
Okay. Good clarification. Thank you. Other suggestions from commissioners? Okay, we'll move on to item number 10, public comment. This item is for either public comment on any action item or for any general public comment. Seeing no one left in the audience, I will move on from this public comment item and ask for adjournment.
So moved.
Thank you. Motion to have a second. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good night. Thanks, everyone.